This episode's brought to you by Affordable Drill Towers. Founded in 2016 by our good friend Steve Sanguidoce, a retired Houston, Texas firefighter, the Affordable Drill Tower was designed and built with functionality and versatility in mind for any training ground. As a standalone training tower or an add-on to an existing burn building or Connex setup, the Affordable Drill Tower packs a massive punch at an affordable price tag. With over 50 towers across the country, from Massachusetts to California, Montana to Texas, professionally engineered, NFPA and ISO compliant, the Affordable Drill Towers brings the versatility to your training ground. From Main Street USA, the small town fire company in their back parking lot, to the training grounds of the largest metropolitan fire academy, the Affordable Drill Tower fits the bill for price and functionality. Check them out at affordabledrilltowers.com. And two things I like to talk about also when talking about our friends over at Affordable Drill Towers. One, their customized training program. They have the ability to bring some of the best talent from across the country to your home turf after the install of the Affordable Drill Tower. Designing a customized training program for you and your department, Steve will facilitate some of the biggest and brightest names of the American Fire Service to come in and work with you and your department. And secondly, and I think most important, is Steve's belief in need over greed. The Affordable Drill Tower company gives back to not-for-profits that support organizations in the American Fire Service. Organizations such as the Joey D Foundation, which is near and dear to Steve Sanguidoce's heart, as well as many other not-for-profits that he takes a part of. He takes great pride in providing funding for organizations that push this job forward. So check them out, Steve and Dennis over at Affordable Drill Towers. Send them an email at info@affordabledrilltowers.com. Check them out on social media, and their YouTube page is kicking butt with great information, training nuggets, and information about their towers. So check them out, Affordable Drill Towers, and let them know Jeremy over at National Fire Radio sent you. This episode's brought to you by Ridgeway Leatherworks. Ridgeway Leatherworks is a firefighter-owned and operated business, as well as a family-run business, and that's what I love about it. Rob and his family are passionate about their customer service and the quality product and craftsmanship they put out for the emergency services. Rob's been on the show. We've been to his business. We've seen them in action. I've even tried to hand paint radio straps. I promise you, it is not as easy as what the final outcome looks like. The product is so good and so clean and crisp, and yet, man, it takes that steady hand. Rob's become a near and dear friend of our podcast, and you hear that over and over when we talk about our sponsors, that they're friends, supporters, and that's what this networking community is all about, is supporting one another. Ridgeway Leatherworks, Rob Meyer, crushing it. Quality and craftsmanship is number one. Customer service is right there with it. From custom radio straps, universal radio holsters, chin straps, flashlight holders, anti-sway straps, and locker tags made out of leather, there's plenty of opportunity along the way when you deal with Ridgeway Leatherworks. So check them out at ridgewayleatherworks.com. Find them on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And tell Rob you heard about him on the National Fire Radio platform, and give him a little plug and tell him keep up the good work. We need to support our firefighter-owned businesses, and especially family-run businesses, where his two daughters and his wife help out day in and day out along with his other employees. So again, Ridgeway Leatherworks, check them out at ridgewayleatherworks.com and find them on all your social media channels. Hey everybody, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. On the podcast today, Captain Jess Rodzinka, Charlottesville, Virginia. This guy got introduced to me by a mutual friend, Andy Sacadato, the Water Thieves. He was on the show several episodes ago. He's been on a couple times. Super smart when it comes to water supply. Andy reached out and said, hey, I'd like to make a connection, and off you go. Here we are on the podcast today with Jess. Jess, 28 years. Good, man. 28 years in the fire service, 25 years as a career fireman, currently serving as a captain, like I said. But the reason why you're on tonight with me is a topic that's of great interest to not just myself, but most people in the fire service. And you offer a class called The Senior Man, an informal leader of the firehouse. And so I'm excited. Yeah, man, I'm excited tonight to break that down a little bit and hear about what you speak about when in regards to the senior man. You do travel around the country giving this lecture, and so on. So I'm very interested. I haven't sat through it yet, so I don't know the bullets of it and your position and how you roll with it. But I'm excited tonight to learn a little bit myself. But it is a topic that I do speak about every once in a while. So it's going to be a great conversation, man. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate this.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So you're a legacy firefighter. You said your father was a firefighter. Your uncle's a firefighter, right? So you come from the lineage of firefighting. So how much of an impact was that on you growing up and to put you where you are today on the job?
Oh, huge. I can remember as far back as I can playing with fire trucks and, building firehouses and burning all types of stuff down in my backyard through my imagination. And then I think it was my dad had to take me to school. I was in kindergarten or first grade, and on our way to school, we had to pass one of the volunteer firehouses, and they happened to have a fire that day. And he's like, "Hey, you're going to be a little late to school." And I remember him going down the road, and we're chasing a fire truck down the road, and we pull up in this house. It's fire coming out of it on the second floor. And he gets dressed with his spare turnout gear. The fire trucks show up and they go to work. And needless to say, I was about 3 hours late to school that day. But I think that's when the bug hit me. That's one of my most vivid memories.
How old were you?
Probably 5 or 6.
Wow.
When I got hooked. And then then from then on out, it was anytime I get to the firehouse or a firehouse around, I was always in there trying to get as much as I could out of it.
I love parents that made the fire department part of their children's lives, because I try to expose my kids as much as I can. I was exposed to it growing up. My father kind of kept it at arm's length when I was little, but as we got older, we were more involved, and then obviously we joined. And I say we because I have 2 older brothers, and all 3 of us became firefighters because of my father and his love for it. Yeah, pretty cool. So there's 3 Donch boys and my father, and at one time we all rode in the same firehouse, which was even more fun. But I think it's important because I think the firehouse brings so much to the table in regards to family, respect, honesty, integrity, character, and all those things. And I love exposing my kids to it today because every single guy in my firehouse knows who my daughters are. And everybody, and my daughters know who everybody is. And so what that does is it means everybody's dialed into one another. And I think that's super important. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. The boys have, obviously there's closer friends than there are some. They're the uncles. And they've asked both my sons, who 5 and 7.
Nice.
Have asked, why do I have so many uncles? It's either uncle or aunt.
Yep.
Whatever. And they really show the same characteristics. What's the old byline? You could leave $1 million on the table, and it'll still be there for another month. But you leave a bottle of ketchup and it's gone.
Yeah.
In a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that there alone just shows that the integrity of firefighters, that you can leave that there. And I trust the majority of the guys that I work with, with my kids' lives, and they know them and they know their kids, and it's just kind of a whole big grouping of family that we're kind of just grows on everything. So it's pretty awesome.
It's powerful. It's powerful, right? Because I think about my kids and I think about what they're exposed to on the regular, guys stopping by the house. We stop by the firehouse if the doors are up, and I'm driving by, and it's always everything kind of revolves around the fire service. And it's funny because I have friends within the firehouse, and then I have friends that know nothing about the fire service. But I can tell you this, it's 2 very separate groups of friends. And I think, well, my friends that don't know anything about the fire service don't listen to the podcast, so I can say this. My firehouse friends are a hell of a lot more fun and dynamic than my not so fire friends. And it's funny because there's such a disconnect between the 2 groups. And my friends that are outside the firehouse, they just don't understand how I can relate to an 18-year-old kid or a 70-year-old man and everybody in between. And it's because age doesn't matter. But
that's right.
If you're outside of the institution, you have no idea how it works. It looks like it wouldn't work, but actually it works really well.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty we have the garage door open that dumps out onto the road of our neighborhood. And it's one of those things, the door's open, you're always welcome. There's always food in the kitchen and beer in the fridge outside. And the boys have grown up on that. ever
Yes.
since, as a baby. Just people are always in and out, especially with the weather getting nicer. It's a regular thing where it's kind of nice having a couple guys that are on the job at different departments that live in the neighborhood. We'll stop there and one thing starts to know. The next thing we know, we're having dinner out in the driveway, fire pit, gets fired up.
Yep.
And by the next time we turn around, everybody's got to go to bed because it's 8:30.
I
So it shows that community also.
Yeah, man. And I think that's what makes it so good, right? And I think that's what's missing, though, in a lot of places. There's a lot of firehouses, whether career or volunteer, that the people don't socialize together. They don't get together. They don't learn who each other are. They don't buy into one another on a personal level. And it's strictly a firehouse or professional level, if you will. And I think that's where you start missing out. And I think that really kind of slides right into the whole senior man conversation, right? Because, it's the senior man is like your class says, it is the informal leader, right? It's not on paper. It's not a position that exists on any chart or any graph or chart or listing or guideline or bylaw. There's nothing in there about the senior man, right?
Right. And that's one of the things that we talk about in the class is that you may be 28 years in the firehouse. That doesn't make you the senior guy. The guys and girls in the firehouse are going to make you the senior man. Just because you've been there a long time doesn't mean that you should be, that's granted upon you. Like some of the best senior men are not the senior guys in the firehouse. They're the guys that are a few years younger than that guy or girl in the firehouse.
Why? Break that down for me.
So if you look at it, and this is something that I've noticed and listen to people talk, which we'll have to come back to communication, which is, sure. I think that's why the firehouse is kind of more sterile than it has been in the past. But if you look at some of the senior guys that I've not only talked to, but been around, they're the senior guys by not only tenure, but by age. And they were kind of granted that, and people just didn't mess with him. Oh, he's the senior guy. He can't, he doesn't do dishes. Or he's a senior guy. He doesn't mop the floor. Well, that's all well and good, but that doesn't make you a senior guy. That just makes you a 28-year lazy dude that's just sitting on the couch or sitting around the recliner watching TV.
So then so there's a distinction then between longevity and senior.
100%.
Cool.
100%.
Keep going.
So if you have, like I say, if you have longevity, that's awesome. You've pretty much been doing things the way we all dream about doing things. The 3/4 boots or the 3/4 boots and the long coats. We look at that like you've done that. That's pretty cool. But to adapt and overcome the way the fire service is changing now, you need to have the credibility with the longevity that you've been there to maintain that status as a senior guy. Stepping up and helping with dishes or I can hold a broom just like the rest of them can. It works just fine. That kind of puts you out there as a leader and a senior guy. And if you look like you always want to lead from the front, you see all the memes and the pictures and the quotes and all this other stuff. But until you actually do it and put yourself out there by doing it, that's how you kind of escalate at that point of the senior firefighter. Like you're the go-to guy for finding information or how things work or how to do something or as simple things like we're finding out how to make tea, how to make the tea properly every day.
What do you guys have sweet tea there in Virginia? Is that what you're talking about?
It's like I don't make it. I'm not a really sweet tea drinker, but they make it's like 2 tea bags, these huge tea bags, and like 9 cups of sugar. We carry it. I think the ambulance carries it with them all the time. Sometimes we run out of
a little pick me up.
Run out of the D25. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, listen, man, I know before we even get on any more of the topic of senior man, the sweet tea I know is a very important thing and highly protected, right? The recipe is highly protected. I mean, you giving that away right now in a podcast might be grounds for punishment, I think, sanctions put against you.
That's all I know. I know that as an officer now, I know the directions where they're at in case somebody needs them, but I don't read them because I don't make it. It's the junior guy's job. They're taught that when they come to the firehouse. That's one of their day one things. That's one of the traditions that came back in our firehouse over the last several years was the new junior guy makes the makes the tea every day, and he makes the tea until he gets another junior guy. Then he passes that recipe down to that guy.
I love that. I love it.
Which is a small tradition that that picked back up over the last several years when we started developing these senior guys in our firehouse.
How did that? Wait, okay, that's cool. So how did that get picked back up? So it lost its traction for a while.
It did, and we started, and this goes back to how the firehouse has become a more sterile place. I know we went from general population sleeping to individual rooms.
Okay.
In our firehouse, both politically and reasons we all know why. So you have your privacy now. People started to realize like they can go escape there, it is nice. Don't get me wrong, but still, you're getting more individuality out of that, not more of the cohesive family unit in there. So it kind of started disappearing a little bit. So then we came in, and it all started with a class we took. Several of us took this class a few years ago, and we wanted to get company pride. We're kind of in a lull in the fire department I work at, and at the firehouse, not necessarily the fire department itself, but the firehouse. And we got together, and we were like, how are we going to come out of this? So we took this class, and the guy was, I can't remember what class it was, but he's talking like, you guys need to come up with a station patch, bring morale up. So we started getting together. We got the station patch. Well, then we developed this patch and this design that we all decided as the firehouse. And then we were like, well, how are you going to earn? You can't just buy this patch. So how are you going to earn it? Well, you have to earn the patch, the coin, the shirts, the clothes, all the swag. You have to earn that stuff. Well, how do you do that? Well, let's start with as simple as making tea. And that's how it kind of came around. So one of the guys that really knew how to make sweet tea, wrote the recipe down and typed it out, and literally it gets handed off every time a new person comes in. So
I love that. I mean, it's just, it's something simple, right? But it's like, it's almost, I know in that Southern culture, right, that the sweet tea is always available, or some type of brew, right? I know like in Houston, Texas, I remember we were at 68s with Mo Davis, and Mo's driver had his brew, and he was the guy that made it, and it was always available in a jug, and it was for everybody to drink, and I don't think anybody knew the recipe but him. And so, it's like that staple, and it's like, it's something informal, but like there's such a formal process to it that is exactly, I think something like that, the sweet tea in a firehouse represents the senior man. It's very much the same thing. It's this informal yet formal position, right? Or thing. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly right.
That's cool.
And it goes, same goes with the coffee in the firehouse.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I remember growing up, everybody had, like, not so much now, but everybody either smoked cigarettes or drank coffee. You had to do one of the two to be in the fire department, I think.
Yeah.
When I was growing up.
I love smoking cigarettes, by the way. I haven't smoked in 16 years. I quit 16 years ago, pack a day at least. Camel Lights, I still, when I smell people smoking, I kind of like drool a little bit. Like, I'll never go back to it. But man, there was nothing, amazing. I thought I was so cool hanging in the fire truck with a cigarette butt hanging out of my mouth. But anyway, go ahead. I remember going to the firehouse and like, when I was younger, I was short enough, I'd get underneath the haze of cigarette smoke in the lounge. Exactly. At the firehouse. I was like, what are we doing here? Yeah. We had those stand-up ashtrays next to the chairs. Yeah. The ashtrays were 2 feet tall. And you would just smoke butts in the firehouse and flick your ash in this ash can. The ash can would catch fire every month because there's so much shit in the bottom of it. Yeah. Right? Oh, my God. But those are the memories, man. Like, I remember that stuff.
So, and then we go back to it. I mean, because obviously we're looking at things in the firehouse to make us healthier. So we're working out. So that doesn't happen anymore. That was something everybody could get to kind of gather around, I guess, like a club thing. I don't know. Yeah. I never did it. So I was around it a lot, but never actually partake in any of that.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, it was one of those things that now we have the coffee. Everybody drinks the coffee. Like, we've got the younger group that likes all the fancy coffees and stuff like that, but still, a good cup of black coffee is what everybody kind of gets drawn to throughout the day. And it's, 2 or 3 pots a day goes through. And
I think it's also the process of it, right? It's like the junior guy's making it. He's got responsibility. So he's making it. And then the senior guys come through, and whether they want a cup or not, they're probably going to have one just to test the junior kid to make sure that he made it and it's okay. And if it's not okay, they're going to let him know. It's kind of the informal ribbing, right? The ball busting that goes on. And then the pot's always there and it's always warm. And so it is there when you need an afternoon pick-me-up, but, like, it's the process of it. I love that you guys, like, recognize this, though, that, like, you guys didn't have some of these things in place. And so you decided years ago to kind of bring it all back, no?
Yeah, that's what we did. And it's slowly, it's taken a long time to get there.
Sure.
We're at a kind of a point now where it's kind of like on cruise control, where each shift is kind of doing their own thing. Obviously 3 different shifts in our firehouse. There's 3 different things going on, but there's still a constant of, like, that sweet tea or the coffee, that one of those 2 things or both are made for the day. It's usually the junior guy doing it or learning something about it to learn how to pass that on.
Yeah, and I also believe, too, and I said this the other day when we were doing an episode, or I was speaking somewhere, I said, I've come to realize, like, culture can't be forced. It has to be organic, which means it takes time. Like, you can't create culture overnight. And so, with that comes a year, 2 years, 4 years, then it turns into 8, 10, 12 years. And before you know it, that culture is very much entrenched. And that sweet tea is no longer something that we do. It's something we always have done, And it's like when people start coming in and you get new guys to the company that didn't know life before sweet tea, right? Or life, without sweet tea, then that's all they know when they come in. And when they come in, they go, oh, sweet tea is part of the culture here. I got to make sure I learn how to make it. I got to make sure it's here. And then that's how culture is formed.
Yes. The thing that we found through the last several recruit academies we've done, and I think we ran 7 or 8 in the last 5 or 6 years, that we've had to explain the why. And that's one of the things that we've really had to dive into, because some of these people coming in, both male and female, have no clue about either sweet tea or drinking sweet tea.
Sure.
So you've got to explain the why of, like, why we're doing things, not only with sweet tea or the coffee, but, like, why we do certain things on the fire ground or on the fire truck or on the apparatus floor or in the office or on the scene. We've got to explain that, because they literally, some of them, could be a vegetable farmer on Friday and Monday they're in fire academy and learning about the job and everything that we're passionate about, that the ones of us that are there, passing this on, are passionate about, and trying to project that passion and bleed that passion on.
So what are your thoughts on the why, right? Your program, I mean, I got to believe the senior man program that you do, you talk about the younger generation, and the younger generation certainly asks more questions than the generation prior and the generation prior to them. So the why, right? I mean, I just wrote it down in big letters on my pad, the why. How do you talk about that?
So we talk about the why, and the why is different for everybody. And it kind of, to take a step back, I had to look at myself and figure out what I was doing internally and do a self-reflection and figure out my why. And my why has changed, especially in the last 7.5 years since I've had a child, and 2 of them, and two boys that may or may not be in the fire service. I don't know. The youngest one, he's all about fire trucks. The oldest one is not. So if they become firefighters, but I want to leave the job better for them when they get there, so they don't have the struggles or the struggles that I had coming into it.
Sure.
And the understanding that they have for the job when they come to that.
But isn't part of that? So that's an interesting way you just put that. Let's unpack that for a second.
Sure.
You just said that you don't want them to have the same struggle you had.
Yes.
I find I'm starting to struggle with that. And I'll tell you what, not you. I'm not singling you out, but I spoke last Friday night. I did a keynote about this, and I talked about how I have created entitlement for my children. Every generation always wants to do their kids better, right?
Yes.
So we do more for them. We protect them more. We provide more. We do more for them, right? But in return, are we softening them? Are we creating this level of entitlement? And so I wonder that the more, like, exposing your children to the firehouse, but, like, doing it in a way that they understand the respect and the importance of it. And so that if my daughter Lily she's 15, at 16, if she wants to join the volunteer fire department as a junior firefighter, she can. But she also knows that there's a real serious line, that it's one thing to be my daughter and joke around with everybody. It's another thing that when you come in at 16 as a member, all that stuff kind of disappears, and you need to walk this line of a probationary junior member in the fire company, and that you're not buddy with everybody anymore in a way, right? And I wasn't like, when I grew up, I wasn't buddy with everybody in the firehouse. I knew who everybody was, and they knew who I was, but it's not the relationship like my kids have with a lot of these guys today. And so, so I wonder, like you said, I don't want them to have the same struggle. I wonder if, and there's no fault to you, like any parent, you always want to do more for your kids. But I wonder if that's part of the disconnect that's happening more and more today in the fire service, is that because of these different generations, it's generational, and we're trying to protect the next generation, right? And we're not doing anything that we think is detrimental and not on purpose to soften them. But man, I think we're softening them.
No, I don't disagree. I think that we've come to a point where we're getting such an influx, and if you travel as much as I do, everybody's having the same problems.
100%.
The problem we're having? No, we're not getting paid enough. We're doing more with less, and the people that the pot of people we're picking from is getting smaller and smaller. So try to explain that to them, and when I meant easier for them, I want them to understand the fire service that I came into, that I grew up with.
Yeah, good.
Where we came from versus. And understanding where we came from and how we got to where we're at, more so to make it easier for them to understand, not soften them up necessarily.
Got it.
But mainly soften them up, because I'm providing a lot of information for them that I wasn't given, that I had to go research and find out. I mean, I look across the room right now.
But you put in the work then, right? See, that's the thing, though, because you found a love for it, and your love consisted of you pushing yourself to learn more on your terms. And I wonder when we give everything to everybody all the time and people aren't working for it anymore, are they as in love with it? Do they feel the same burning passion you have for it? Right? Like, that's what I would love to unpack this conversation some more in my own head after we get off this call tonight, after this episode, because I think that, like, there's something there. I think that it's important that, I spoke about it. I said, everybody wants it fast and easy, not long and hard.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody wants it now, and they want it as easy as possible. Nobody wants to work for it, but the fire service requires you to put in the hard work. You cannot learn firefighting without falling down, without getting hurt, without getting kicked in the teeth, right? It is a process that takes a long time to master, if you can even master it, right? Yeah. And so that's the interesting thing, is that the fire service will always be long and hard. The fire service will never be easy and fast, right? That's just can't be. It just can't be. Yeah. This episode's brought to you by the Affordable Standpipe Prop. Let's break it down real quick. Steve and the crew at Affordable Drill Towers is doing it again. They've created this fully custom and fabricated standpipe prop to support the fire service. I'm telling you right now, this is a game-changing piece of training equipment. And I want to hop into it real quick. It is designed with a 4-inch manifold of high-strength galvanized Schedule 10 pipe. The cart and manifold are powder-coated red for a durable finish, meaning it's not just a talking piece. It's not something you tuck away on the shelf. This is a training prop that can be wheeled into the classroom and then brought out onto the training ground. And so let's talk about that. In the classroom, there's nothing better than having a hands-on prop in front of the students, in front of the fire companies that are there to learn about standpipe and FBC connections. Having that prop in the classroom allows for a great instructional lecture. And then from there, take the standpipe theory and translate it to the training grounds. You could wheel the cart out that's on casters, you wheel it out into the parking lot, and that same training prop that you just used hands-on in the classroom can now be used hands-on on the training ground by pumping into it and flowing out of it. It offers such versatility in its approach. It has a 2.5-inch Siamese connection, 7 2.5-inch outlets, 6 of which are standpipe valves, has a water motor gong, sprinkler head with a control valve, and a system pressure gauge. You can also upgrade and put 3 of the most common field-adjustable PRVs. I'm telling you right now, this is a game-changing training prop that needs to be in every fire company or training department across the country. Reach out to Steve and the crew, info@affordabledrilltowers.com. Ask for a demo, ask for information, or check them out on social media and YouTube. There's plenty of content out there that shows you exactly what the affordable standpipe prop can do for you. This episode's brought to you by Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his crew at Taylor's Tins have been manufacturing aluminum helmet fronts since 2017. With over 200,000 tins in the market, they are a leader in the helmet front space. Custom design, one-offs to department orders, they can turn them around within 24 to 48 hours. Customer service is what they pride themselves on, and they provide nothing but top-shelf product and service to their customers. Check them out at taylorstins.com and check out their full line of product offering. They've always been a very strong supporter since day one with the National Fire Radio podcast and platform, and Taylor and his crew have become dear friends of ours, and we appreciate the support. And at checkout, for a little extra bonus, use coupon code NFR Sent Me. That's NFR Sent Me for a discount on your order. Exclusions do apply. Anyway, check out taylorstins.com for the latest and greatest offerings from Taylor and his crew. And in the words of Taylor, stop burning up leather. So we have to make sure that the process of the people coming in too is long and hard. We have to make it difficult for them in a way. But I mean that in a good way. I don't want people listening going like, oh, you don't want to make it hard, you know, this and that. But no, but you want people to feel like they've earned it. You want people to feel like they've put in the amount of hustle, drive, and determination it takes to feel accomplished, so that when they finish their probie school, they finish the fire academy, and they come to the firehouse, they're feeling a sense of fulfillment and gratification. Yes. That they've done everything they've needed to do and have done well to get where they are.
That's exactly right. And I think those small little victories that they get will help them get those building blocks of confidence and feel of accomplishment through the fire service career, finding those small things. But, you know, and that's one of, and again, we have to communicate that and set our expectations up for that. And if we don't do that in the firehouse, communicate that properly with the expectations properly, then they're just going to sit there and be a bump on the log.
That's right. And
then now you turn around and look, and you're like, holy shit. I've been here 5 years. I really haven't done anything but ride the back step of a fire truck. I haven't really looked at maybe being a driver, or maybe, you know, going to paramedic school or hazmat school or tech rescue school or whatever.
We got work to do, man. The guys that are there, the 5-year man, the 10-year man, I think they're the most important people in the firehouse, because they can relate to the new kids still coming in, but they have enough experience under their belt and enough time in that house or company to understand what the expectations are. And
1,000%.
That 5 to 10-year man, I mean, just instrumental in what the fire service should be built on.
100%. I don't disagree with that at all. And that's where we need to focus all our stuff on, because not only you're looking at the 5 to 10-year guy, but as far as like if you look at the fire service as a business aspect, they're vested now.
Yes.
In some places, and then they could bounce if you want to. So we've got to look at that and be like, all right, well, you know, not to put it but in layman's terms, but, you know, shit or get off the pot. I want you to stay around and just hang out and be one of the better firefighters growing into a good officer from the senior firefighter spot to help grow the fire service.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to be around much longer to do this, you know?
Yeah. How do I know I'm the senior man? Because
the firehouse is going to tell you.
Talk about that.
You can't just go and just bust through the door on, say it's your 7th year reunion or anniversary or whatever out of your recruit academy class. The firehouse is going to tell you that you're the senior man. They're going to start looking at you, coming to you for questions, you know, questions about daily activities, how to log time in, how to, where cleaning supplies are, how to, you know, check apparatus. You know, if you're in an area that gets a lot of snow, we're hit or miss on snow, but we have to have, you know, every year, 2 or 3 times a year, we look at how to put on tire chains. That's the guy that's going to know how to do that. The saw's not running properly. He may have knowledge on where to or how to send the saw off to get it properly worked on. This is going to be the go-to guy for everything, not only equipment, but the leader. They're going to come down, the captain or the officer for the day, or career volunteer. If you're the duty officer, is going to come to make sure stuff gets done. The guys underneath this gentleman or woman are going to look at that and be like, wow, the captain's going in for this stuff. This may be the guy to go to if I have if I have a question about something. Report writing. That's a big thing that we've been going through recently in our job is making sure reports are done properly. And we've got a lot of those 5 or 10 year guys that are setting their own classes up and making sure the junior guys know how to properly write a report, both fire and EMS now. But it's done by the firehouse. It's not any one thing. There's no wand from the witch of the east that comes down and grants you the senior man thing. It just happens.
Yeah,
it turns around
I wonder if the guy that gets coined the senior man even realizes he is the senior man in the beginning, right? Like
he doesn't. Like the story that I have, I was looking one day. I wasn't promoted yet, but I was by tenure the senior guy in the fire service. One of the guys that have been there in the fire service, not necessarily at the fire department that long, that I work at currently, but in the fire service are all the longest. And I looked at him, and everybody was asking me questions, and the captain's coming to me making sure stuff gets done. And then it was a realization that I had been put in that position. I literally went from the first day of my tour, knucklehead, to a know-it-all on the second day of my tour, and here I am as the senior guy, and I was kind of thrust to that position on the podium. So, it just happens. You don't really look for it. It just kind of happens that way. And
is that what kind of pushed you to write this program, because you got thrusted into that position, whether you were ready or not?
Yes and no, because by this time I'd taken a bunch of officer level classes, leadership classes, and they were all preparing me preparing everybody in that class for that right front seat, or when you get out of that right front seat, going to a battalion chief buggy or to a fire chief spot. But nobody really talked about this informal leader where everybody's kind of really looking to. And if you sit back and look at it, this is the guy or girl that kind of runs the firehouse on the day-to-day operations. And there was no class for that. So I'm starting to kind of write notes down and jot stuff down in a notebook. And then unfortunately lost one of the senior guy in our firehouse, the one that everybody kind of went to on all 3 shifts we lost him in 2018. To job-related cancer. And when he went, all his knowledge went with him.
Yeah.
And as by this time, I've been thrust in the senior man position. I would go to him for anything. And now I can't call him up. I can't text him to get information. All that knowledge is lost with him. So I wanted to write a program and develop and deliver this program to give to people. So if they realize they're in this position, or they feel like they're in this position, or if they don't even have this position around, this is just kind of something that's done, they don't know what to call it or whatever, they can look at this information that we go over and be like, well, great, now I have some type of foundation I can look at and grow from to give you that. We don't give you I don't give you everything, because it's all individual, but we talk about communication, confidence, the personal interaction, the stuff like that you deal with on a daily basis in the firehouse.
Well, you mentioned communication earlier, and you said you wanted to come back to it. I put a underlined it, circled it, right? So what do you want to say about communication?
Absolutely. So I've had to learn in the last 8 years or so how to communicate with people differently. And I mean this by the younger generation talks way different than we do. And anybody over the age of 35, this is who I'm talking to, because they have words and sentences that I have no idea what's going on. So as a newly promoted officer on the engine, my driver was 22 at the time, and the backstep firefighter, she's a paramedic on the engine, she's 24. And they were having a conversation, and Jeremy, I swear to you, we went 9 blocks. I don't think they said a full sentence. And then the driver looks over at me and goes, "What do you think, Cap?" And I'm like, "I have no idea what you said." But they're coming up with slang terms, so you've got to learn that. Not learn it like know like a second language, but you got to understand what they're saying, and learning how to communicate and what what turns them on and lights them, sparks their fire every day. You've got to learn how to do that because this generation is different. I mean, you hear this all the time in every podcast you go to that all the firefighters are different nowadays. The firefighters, they're a little different, but it's just a different generation. They are learning differently. They're speaking differently. They're still the same good-hearted blue-collar firefighter, male or female. They just sound differently than you do. They may not like the music you like, or they may not talk the way you do, but learning how to communicate and bridge that gap of communication with the generations is where we've had to come, and where I've personally had to grow, and learn how to communicate. But
yeah, I mean,
pretty mind-blowing.
Well, you just literally said the title of my class, Bridging the Gap, preserving tradition and culture one generation at a time. And, and the thing is, though, is what we do is we always put our generation on a pedestal. And so we always are protective of what we know as the word of God. And so the next generation, when they are a little bit different, they communicate a little bit different, they act a little bit different, their morals, ethics, and values might skew a little bit different than mine. They might be, more willing to try different things, put themselves out there, be a little more vulnerable, like all of that. The one thing we can't do is vilify that. We can't look at them and say that they're different than us. They are different, but not in a bad way. They're different because they grew up in a different time with different influences and resources that were available to them that weren't available to me, Yes. And so, you have to respect that. And any boss, whether it's the informal senior man position or a line officer, a company officer, it doesn't matter. You better buy into your people. And if your people are 22 and 24 riding your back step, you better work at figuring out who they are and what makes them tick, like you said, because you have to. It's required of you. You cannot write them off just because they're a little bit different than you are. That's just like the senior guys, the generation prior to those guys, writing them off when they came into Firehouse. And that's bullshit. We can't do that. The job isn't changing per se, whether career or volunteer. The people are changing. And what we have to do is find ways to communicate between the different generations so that the output is the same. The input's different. Mix it all up in the bag and throw it out on the table. It's all the same. We have to work harder today to figure that out than ever before.
Yes, and we found that we have to bringing it up because I'm talking to now as an officer. I have to look at it differently a little bit, but you hear people complaining. I'm like, well, have you talked to them about why they are the way they are, or why they said the way they said whatever they said? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. I haven't really thought about that.
Nobody wants to put in the work.
Do. And I'm like, wait a second. There we go. Go back to putting in the work. And I'm like, well, maybe you should ask them what's going on in their life or why they feel that way. They may have a valid reason. So one of the things that we try to do around the kitchen table, which is the great equalizer, the kitchen table, ratchet straps, and come-alongs are the great equalizer of the fire service. We have to teach people how to talk instead of looking on the phone and texting each other back and forth, across the kitchen. We have to teach them how to talk and teach them how to communicate, teach them how, so-and-so likes this, and this, because that's where they came from. They grew up in this era and area of the Commonwealth that's what was normal for them. Now you've got to not learn about it, but respect where they came from and pick up a little bit of knowledge from them. And by doing that, people are getting along a lot easier. And that generational gap's being bridged. Just as it's a long time.
100%. But here's the thing, right? And this is what I think is interesting, to just bring it back around to the topic of conversation, which is the senior man. Is the senior man has to work pretty hard at making and bridging these gaps, right? In that he has to dial into his people. He has to know what's making his people tick. He's got to feel the tempo of them coming in the firehouse in the morning or in the volunteer firehouse coming in on a training night or for a call. He needs to know their kids' names, their spouses. They need to know what makes them tick. They need to know how they're doing, where they are, right? These are all important things. And if you decide to write people off because they're different, younger, they look different, they smell different, they talk different, whatever it is, if you decide to write them off because of that, there is no human way you can relate with them. You can't.
100%. And by doing that, and that all comes around with getting involved with each other, both on duty and off duty.
Yes.
By finding it out, we've started, once again, we started something new just this year. Is after we work a 3-day tour, so 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, then we get a 4-day break. And our first day of our 4-day break, we all go to breakfast. We invite people. You can make it or you don't make it. If you don't make it, everybody understands you don't make it. I mean, can't make everything, but you go out and we just go and we find out about each other. How's everybody doing? Your personal life. How's your girlfriend, wife, boyfriend, whatever it may be. We talk about that. What hobbies do you get into? Like, there's some dudes out there that have some pretty crazy hobbies, and you really start finding out about them. And you're like, holy shit, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then by doing all that, you can look at them, like you said before, when they're coming into work and Bobby looks a little rough coming in. You're like, hey man, you all here today? And he's like, dude, I had a rough night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, goes on. You're like, well, maybe you shouldn't be at work today, or you shouldn't be here volunteering your time. Maybe that's when the senior guy pulls him aside and is like, hey, you need to make a decision, because I got to rely on you, and you have to rely on me.
That's right.
On this one. And if you're not there today, I'd rather you be home or somewhere else where you need to be. And that's happened a couple times. It's a tough conversation to have.
Well, and then
it's a hell of a conversation
that leads me to the other side of the coin, and I wrote this down. I literally wrote this down. It says on the bottom of my pad, the other side of the senior man. When we start talking about having to have the hard conversations, I think maturity is important, and you need to be able to have those hard conversations with people. You need to have empathy. You need to have feelings. You need to have a good moral compass. Like, these are all things that senior men or women, right, need to have in the firehouse, right? And so, that's why you're right. Age doesn't matter. It's level of experience, maturity, and people skills, I think, are all things that make and lead up to the person that is the informal leader, the one that has a very strong voice, the one who can get things done, make people say they're sorry, make people make up, whatever it takes. But man, it takes a certain individual, and you have to be able to do the hard shit.
Yeah, and you have to have that hard conversation going both directions of the ladder. If you're having a shitbag officer, lieutenant, captain, whatever, you be able to sit that person down as a senior firefighter professionally, respecting the rank and position, but also coming at him with honesty, all the things you mentioned, honesty, empathy, and understanding, to come there and be like, hey man, you're really messing up and pissing dudes off. And that's a hard thing to do, to be in that position, to be able to have that. And
he still has to hold his people together.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And having that conversation both up and down is a tough thing to do. Personally, from experience, it's really hard to sit in there and you got to have a couple of gulps of water to be like, here we go. This is the boat we've been put on. Now we have to ride it. So but having that empathy is something that I don't feel a lot of the senior officers have much, because of the way they've been promoted or how they've been promoted that I've seen.
Yeah, I think empathy is a very interesting conversation. And I think people that are dialed into their people that make effort, right? Like, if I choose to know who Jess Rodzinka is, and I learn who you are and your two boys, 5 and 7, right? I mean, I've been listening, right? And I know that you keep your garage door up, and the beer's out in the fridge outside, and the food's always in the kitchen or in the fridge, right? Like, things you said. Like, I'm sitting here for the last 45 minutes listening to you and understanding who you are. And you know what? It matters. People have to dial into one another. And I think if you make the effort to learn who the people are on your shift, who your firefighters are, who your officers are, and everybody in between, and you make that effort to learn who they are in the job and outside the job, if you make that effort, you're going to have some empathy towards them. Empathy 100%. Is so important.
100%. And then it all goes back around the conversation we started with. It's work. Every day you've got to go in as the senior man, the junior man aspiring to be the senior man, whatever it is, and put work into the firehouse. Not only learning your craft, but learning about the people that are hopefully passionate about your craft that you want to learn more about.
100%.
So it's all that work. It consumes your day, and may consume more than just your day of a 24, 12 or 24-hour tour that you're doing, but it also may consume your off time too.
People matter.
Conversations and stuff like that.
People matter. And I can't believe that anybody wants to be in a place, whether it's a job or you're volunteering your time, who wants to be in a place with people that you don't enjoy?
Yep, that's right.
Right. And I'm not saying kumbaya, we're going to get along with everybody all the time. No, you're going to butt heads. You're going to find people that you cannot get along with. You're going to find people that you do not want to hang out with outside of the fire. I get all that. Like, that's just reality, right? But you got to give it a shot. You can't write somebody off because you're 52 and he's 24 and he speaks a different language on the back step. Right. You have to dial in. And you know what? It's not the 24-year-old's responsibility to reach you. You have to put in some work too, and you guys have to find that common ground. You both have to put in the work to find a solution that works for both of you.
That's exactly right. And it takes time, but you could see it's been pretty interesting watching people grow in the firehouse over the last couple of years in our firehouse. And then all of a sudden you see the light bulb kick one day and they're like, holy shit, like I can really get into this guy because he said whatever about something, maybe a band.
Yeah,
a rock band or something like that they both like, and they didn't know they both liked it until they started talking to each other about other things other than being in a firehouse. And then when that light bulb hits, like, holy shit, Tommy can talk to Johnny now, and Johnny can talk back to Tommy. You're like, wait a second, and that's when it all comes together, and everything kind of goes a lot better at work when everybody's getting along. Yeah, you're not going to have everybody's not going to get along 100% of the time, and we're a family, just like a normal family in the world now. We don't get along, but still, it makes things a lot easier. It makes you want to stay at work and come into work. I'm excited to go to work tomorrow morning.
There you go. Well, let me ask you this, with your presentation, the senior man, right, the informal leader of the firehouse, how do you kind of wrap up your presentation? Like, what do you leave it on a high note? Like, things are good, we're in a good place, you got to put the work in. Like, what's your message at the end of it?
So at the end of it, it's no matter. So I kind of wrap everything up. We kind of go over like a review, like go back through the communication, the culture, establishing that informal hierarchy in the firehouse. We talk about the pride again in the firehouse, taking ownership into your job and your craft by learning and training every day with the same people. And then we figure out that no matter how big or small your company is, whether it be an engine company, ladder company, rescue company, ambulance, firehouse, fire department, whatever it may be, the senior guy is the one that can bring everybody together, that kind of holds the ship together, whether it be on one end of the ship or the other end of the ship. But that guy can also stop the sinking ship if it is sinking, and brings it back up, brings it afloat by working on those small little steps, the hierarchy, the ownership, the pride back in your firehouse, the communication issues. By a simple conversation, you can cure a lot of things just by saying, hey man, what's up today, versus, oh, Johnny's not feeling well, so I'm not going to talk to him, he's a piece of shit type thing.
Well, we got to have an environment that wants people to buy into their people, right? So like we have 100%. To buy into each other. We have to buy into the department, and then the department has to buy into us, right?
Yep.
And you can't have good, fluid conversation, whether from the top down or the bottom up, if there's not a buy-in on all levels. And I think, obviously communication's always one of the biggest issues when there's a breakdown, because whenever there's a breakdown with anything, you look at what one of the main causes is, and it's always communication. We don't communicate enough. We need to over communicate, because everybody listens and hears differently. And so what you're saying in one way, somebody might need to hear it a different way to get the same result. And so it takes work, right? We got to do the work, put the work in to get the message across. I need Jess Rodzinka to ask me how I'm doing today. I need you to recognize that I need you to ask me that. That's important. Very much so. And it takes a little bit of time to step out of your bubble, especially the people that are introverts, which are oddly are a lot of people. I didn't realize that you may have to step outside that bubble to be like, just to kind of say, hey, what's up? How you doing today? Type thing. Absolutely. But once you do that, you'd be surprised the doors that it opens. That's a fun conversation, right? I just wrote that down. Step outside your bubble. Yep. I think though, I think it's easy to classify people as introverts and then let them get away with that. Yeah. I think it's horse shit. A lot of it. I agree 100%. Perfect. I think people are too wrapped up in their own shit and they blame it on being an introvert instead of just not caring about somebody else. I agree 100%. I'm like, you could carry, and that's one of my pet peeves, and this is going to crucify me a little bit, but you could carry so much shit with you, and everybody's be like, all right, he always has this bag of shit. But then, like, there's a point where it's like, all right, man, quit leaning on this bag of shit that you keep carrying with you. What the hell? I agree. Like, get out of your own way. Let's be friends. We can do this. Like, we can be friends. It may not be like the stepbrother friends, but we could be close enough. Yeah. But I don't like people using that as a crutch. It's easy to make excuses, bro. Which sucks. We all do it. We all do it, right? The easiest way to, when we don't feel up to the task, what do? We make an excuse. Absolutely. I do it. You do it. Everybody does it. It's just on what scale. Right? Yeah, it's human nature. Of course. But we need to do better at it. And I don't believe the fire service is not a business for introverts. It's not. We need leaders. 100%. If you're an introvert, I'm very challenged to believe that you're going to be able to act in the aggressive manner we need you to. Maybe alone, maybe going to the rear and taking care of something yourself if you're an introvert. And so, like, I listen, I could be totally off the mark with this. And if you're a registered psychologist or a psychiatrist, right, like, I might be totally off the mark, right? I'm just talking from what I believe, but not from a scientific point of view of really, truly understanding and knowing what an introvert is. All I'm saying is we need people that can have conversations, that can take charge, that can go forward and get out of their own way and not be so self-centered in their own shit that they can't worry about everybody else's shit. Absolutely. And it's, I think I'm going to get in trouble for that one, bro. You and me both. We had that nice long conversation how well things are going, and now it's like, oh, that guy Jerry Dunn, he's gone now. No, listen, man. Listen, here's the one thing about all of this, right? Is like, I might not, that's my opinion, and I'm allowed to have it, and you're allowed to disagree with me, but let's talk about common ground. And if somebody knows better than I do, I'm the first one that's going to listen. I'm the first 100%. One that's going to say, listen, educate me then. I'm sorry for what I said, but that's all I know, and I can only form an opinion on what I know, right? And so if there's more to it and I'm not coming forth in an accurate, light, then educate me so I know going forward. But I have to be open-minded to listen to somebody else's point of view. Yes. And you funny you say that. One of my, he's become a very, very good friend, almost a best friend to me. I met him in recruit school. He came up to me first day out of it, and he's like, I think I'm gonna be a fireman today, literally. And we joke about it, but he comes to me and goes, hey man, I don't know what I don't know, and you need to teach me everything I don't know. So don't get me killed today, and I look forward to learning from you. And I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot on your plate. But if you think about it, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And if you take that conversation every day and you make your own opinion, like we just talked about, that's your opinion. But if I'm saying something wrong, well, I didn't know that. But now that I can be educated, I'll know that from now on. Thanks 100%. For educating me on that. 100%. How can we hold somebody responsible for something they don't know? So then we have to do a better job at teaching and educating. And that's one of the things. There's a quote, if you don't mind me going off the key for a little bit. There's a quote that I have,
in one of my presentations, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. I don't have it up right now, but I think I've got it down. It's the senior man didn't become an officer or a chief because they couldn't make the grade. They're in the grade all by themselves. They can't obtain their wealth or knowledge from books, but they learned it by experiencing it. And you have to listen when they talk. So that's one of the quotes that kind of sticks with me that I found somewhere during my research or class or something like that, but the author's unknown. But just by doing that, when you sit back and listen, it kind of culminates everything we've talked about, is just sit back and listen and have that empathy, have that communication, the two-way communication. It's a two-way street that you're going to be successful in the fire service, no matter if you're the junior guy in the firehouse or the senior guy or the chief of the department. That two-way conversation of listening and communicating, and not only just listening to listen, but listening to hear where they're coming from is what we need to be doing.
I love that.
And
it's good.
And I think that's what is going to be successful. What success in the fire service as a senior man would be is just being open listening, open communication, being knowledgeable of your craft, and being the go-to guy for everybody. So.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, it's very well said, and I believe it, and I think that it's a position that needs to be in the forefront of every firehouse, whether career or volunteer. There has to be somebody there that is the informal leader, that is the glue in which that company culture is based around, and they are a steward and protector of those that came before, and those are the ones that are the movers and shakers that are making sure they're protecting the integrity of the job. Plain and simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Excellent.
It's huge.
That's the way you're putting it.
Yeah, it's really good, man.
I'm actually writing that one down. I'm going to steal that one from you.
Yeah, you can steal it, but you got to quote me, though, all right? You got
100%. I've got it written down. And
be like, that's that big mouth from National Fire Radio. I love it, man.
Way.
Well, this is a great conversation tonight, because it's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about, and I let you run. I mean, I spoke probably too much, but I let you run with it because it's your topic in your class. But man, I speak about this too, and I have some really heavy opinions about some of this, and I didn't really go down all those holes tonight on my points of view, because I really wanted to feel where you were coming from and get a sense of your program. And frankly, I think it's a great program. I think that this topic is important, and I think that we have an obligation, because part of the problem is I think a lot of firehouses don't have somebody in that position anymore. And, there's a lot of growth in the fire service, a lot of new firehouses opening. And, we talk about how do you, grow your culture organically. It takes time. But when you have a new firehouse opening in these urban sprawl areas or suburban sprawl, rural sprawl, and these fire districts, I know in Texas, like the ESDs are expanding so fast that there is no culture in that firehouse. Right. And so
I believe.
Go ahead.
And I believe you spoke on that with somebody recently.
Yeah.
Either that or it was your podcast. I think somebody from Washington.
Could have been.
They're growing so fast.
Oh, yeah. God.
Yes. Him.
Are you kidding me right now? God.
Hold on. I can look it up.
JP.
Yes.
Sokolowski.
Yeah. Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly who it was.
Thank you. God.
And he was talking about how fast they're growing, and I believe you guys got on that building the culture thing,
right?
And like you said, if you don't have that person's not established, you're just kind of like a sinking ship out there in the middle of this ocean of just like, I don't know where to go.
Well, somebody in that situation has to step up and protect the integrity of the company and the job. And it doesn't have to be that, like we said, it's not longevity, right? It's senior. It's who steps up into that informal role. Who are people looking towards when the shit hits the fan? Who are people, who's the boss looking at when he needs to motivate the crew to get something done, right? Who's that guy or girl that everybody goes to from the bottom up and the top down to make shit happen? And that is the person that is your senior man.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
100%. But yeah, it's that. And again, you can be that person. You could be that person, or someone's going to put you in that spot. So, step up. You'll figure it out. If you're doing the wrong thing, you're doing the wrong thing. But someone's going to tell you you're doing the wrong thing, then don't do that again.
That's right. Absolutely.
Keep moving forward.
And learn from your mistakes and be humble enough to understand that we all make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes on the fireground. We're all going to make mistakes in life. We're all going to make mistakes, in the firehouse. And so accept the fact that you're going to make a mistake and learn from it. Because if you choose not to, you're not going to move forward.
1,000%. Own your mistakes. That's the best. I love messing up every day. So that way I'm like, makes me look like and be like, hey, don't do this next time, just so we all know.
Everybody says that. I hate messing. I hate making errors. I hate messing up, but I do it all the time, and you have to learn from it. But yeah, I agree with you.
I'll sit there for 3 days afterwards, be like, man, I really shouldn't have done that. And
yeah,
it'll weigh on me for a while, but.
Yeah, well, yeah. I've learned to cut my losses and move on. So, with my schedule and the craziness that if I dwell, I would be, I'd be in trouble. So. Yeah. But Jess, I have to say this, man. Great topic tonight. Great conversation. I'm so glad that Andy introduced us and put this together. I'm glad I got to know you tonight. We really didn't know each other prior to this call, prior to this episode. So it was a lot of fun to talk with you tonight. And I wish you the best with your career as a captain in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I'm sure you got a few more years with those young kids. So keep plugging away, man. Keep pushing, making this job better, and good luck with the class. The senior man, the informal leader of the firehouse, man. Good luck with your class. I wish you the best.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great night.
Yeah, man. Where can people find you if they want to reach out? Anywhere they can get a hold of you?
Yep. On Instagram, all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook.
Cool.
That's what I have. I don't have any websites or anything cool like that, but just reach out on those two platforms. Shoot me a message. Love to talk, love to share. It's none of the stuff is mine. I love passing out the information.
I love it. Good deal. Well, Jess, thank you very much for joining me, man. Stay right here. I'm going to sign off the podcast. I'll come right back to you, okay?
Absolutely.
Cool. Everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. The senior man, the informal leader of the firehouse, Jess Rodzinka, fantastic brother out of Charlottesville, Virginia, talking about the senior man tonight. I thought it was a great conversation, good back and forth. I'm glad to bring that and be able to present that to all of you, our community and National Fire Radio Podcast world. If you're interested in reaching out to us, podcast at nationalfireradio.com. Send us an email, man. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to start doing a call-out show, so send us your questions and ideas via the podcast email. Podcast at nationalfireradio.com is the email address. Send us an email, and we'll follow up with you, man. We're looking forward to putting together some live call shows, things like that. So we'd love to hear from you, topics or ideas for the show, as well as just thoughts about the podcast. We appreciate any feedback. We appreciate the kind words that we get. Means the world, man. Myself and the crew, we're working hard at putting this together, and we're very proud of the content and the people that we're talking with and the content we're putting out. So thanks for the support. We appreciate you all. Take the conversation about the senior man tonight and take it back to the firehouse and talk about it. Because as we're talking about the job, we are making the job better. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.